regular meeting of June 24th, 2025. As is our custom, we'll begin with an invocation by Reverend Pastor Hugh Tudor Foley this evening, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance of some members of the Jones family, certainly Magnolia and maybe Clementine. Thank you, Reverend.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we ask that you bless our mayor and this council as they represent the people and community of Pinehurst. We thank you for their time and service. Grant that they may have a spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice as they consider the needs and concerns of our village. And we ask that in our divided nation that divisions might cease, and we ask your blessing on those who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. In your holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Now I'll ask everyone to please rise and face the flag, and Magnolia and or Clementine. Oh, we've got two microphones there. You lead us when you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Very, very well done.
Well done.
Yes, very well done. I got to ask, how old is Magnolia and Clementine? I think Clementine, you're a record setter today. I don't think we've had anyone under the age of 6 yet. So, thank you very much. Okay, let us move forward to item 3 on our agenda, which will be reports. We'll begin with the village manager, Doug.
Thank you, Mayor. Next week is the 4th of July, so we have all our festivities surrounding that. Just going to read a few of those so we're all clear on that. On Thursday, July 3rd, Liquid Pleasure will be performing at the harness track. Fireworks will begin at 9:15, but the gates open at 4, and there will be family activities and entertainment from 6 to 9 p.m. And then on Friday the 4th, we have the Independence Day Parade with the pet parade starting at 9:45, and I hear that Daisy will be another contestant, yes?
Dixie will be there to lose again, my dog.
And then the regular parade starts at 10 a.m. Also, this past week, we got information about the new traffic circle design, so I just wanted to make everyone aware that we put the renderings on our website under Hot Topics, so if someone is interested in seeing what those look like, they can check those out there. So thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay. Just a few things. One, I wanted to mention that we had a very nice note from Pinehurst number 6 community regarding the effort on the sidewalks going in there right now. So congratulations to our staff who've been working on that, the planning and now the execution for a while. And so thanks for the kudos from Pinehurst number 6, and it's well deserved for the staff. Secondly, to add some more information to what the village manager said, this Monday, myself and Councilman Taylor and Doug went up and met with Reuben Blakely and Lisa Mathis regarding the recently announced NCDOT proposal for the Pinehurst traffic circle. We had a constructive meeting. We made some progress. We plan to meet again before the public meeting that DOT plans to hold in October. A specific time, date, and place for that meeting will be announced in the coming month. The CFI shifted pillow, which you may recall last August, the council unanimously adopted a resolution in opposition to that proposal, is history. And so we will now need to focus on this new proposal and hear the thoughts of our residents once again. So I encourage people to go to our website, as Doug mentioned. Stay tuned, stay involved. Um, we're all familiar, this is a process, and it's important that there be community input and involvement, and because that helps us as members of this council, and it will help the community in the long run. So also the National Park Service has been alerted about a new proposal, so we're re-engaging with a lot of the folks that were engaged before, and so we look forward to the progress on that. I want to mention one other thing that I think I found interesting for those of you who enjoy or are curious about your local government. I noticed that this Thursday we have the traditional 4 p.m. meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission, and it has quite an agenda. There are 7 items on that agenda. So I encourage those of you who want to see how your government works, come to the Village Hall at 4 o'clock, and you'll see government, I think, at its best. But at least you'll see particularly how the Historic Preservation Commission looks out for the village's interests and works with our residents to try to make sure people get what they're seeking, and it makes sure it corresponds with the ambiance of our community and with our rules and regulations. So it's open, it's right here. You can watch it streaming online. Lastly, I did attend the First Health Scroll Society and Legacy Circle the other day, and there was a large turnout of individuals, and we were addressed by Mickey Foster, talking about generally First Health and what's going on, and he complimented the village's cooperation about their new parking facility and the upcoming Women's Center and other things that they're working on over the coming years. So First Health is doing very well, and of course, as they do well, it also helps us here in the village. That is what I have for the moment. Dr. Morgan.
Thank you. A few things here. First, reiterating what the mayor just brought up here about the traffic circle. I encourage all of our citizens who have input to give, please give it. Don't hold back on that. It made a significant difference previously, and it may make a difference this time also, but we need to hear the input from our citizenry and see if we can mold this in direction for Pinehurst. There's been a lot going on here in the past couple weeks. We had Flag Day, Army Birthday, which is the same day. We had Father's Day, had Juneteenth, and also the summer solstice, longest day of the year. So hope you all had a great time with that. Hope folks in Pinehurst had a great time with that. But what I really want to focus on here is the summer aspect, okay, and heat. So your medical free advice here is that heat kills, and it's a problem. So people talk about, okay, in the wintertime it gets real cold and worried about the stuff freezing, but you have a lot of people that can pass away from the heat. If your air conditioners aren't working, that kind of stuff, getting out in there and not ready for it, not hydrating up, it can be a big problem. So I encourage you to check on your neighbors. Just, see what's going on if you hadn't seen somebody for a little bit and make sure everything's going okay. But just be careful out there. Look out, thanks.
Thank you for that, and that might be something worthwhile to put on the website for a couple of days, just a heads up to our residents. Mr. Taylor.
A couple of things. First of all, I attended earlier in the month the SMPO Technical Coordinating Committee meeting, and they are heading in the direction which I think will formally get kicked off, Doug, in August, of beginning to update some population forecasts, which the Department of Transportation uses for a variety of reasons, SMPO and broader, and Moore County more broadly. So that's a process that will be kicking off in August. As the mayor said, we had, I thought, a very productive dialogue with representatives from the DOT on Monday. It was the sort of thing that we had been trying to create, and they said they didn't want to until they had their plan formulated. One of the things they mentioned was that during the public comment period that they had this summer, they received in the nature of 800 comments from the public. And they had distilled those down into 3 or 4 major things which resonated across those 800 comments. And I think the new plan reflects a lot of those. It is certainly, my personal opinion, an improvement over what we were looking at last year. And again, having a dialogue may allow us to further shape the ultimate decision when we get to that point. I also chaired the Neighborhood Advisory Committee meeting earlier this month. There was no attempted coup. I don't care what the mayor has heard. And we had, I think, a very good dialogue there. And I would finally echo the mayor's comments about First Health. And Jeff, you may want to flesh this out. You'll be more conversant than I am. There's been a fairly negative trend for rural hospitals in particular for the last number of years. It has a lot to do with government policy, not policy related to any specific administration, although there are certainly some things going on now that may exacerbate some of the trends that were already there. First Health is deliberately swimming upstream against the current of some of those. And I think it is much to their credit, number one, and much to the benefit of not just Pinehurst, but our region, that they're doing that. And it was very enlightening to see the things that they're looking at, both on the facility side, and also they mentioned some, we've talked in our council meetings about the difficulties we have hiring police and fire in particular. There's an equal problem hiring nurses. And the CEO had a statistic that by 2034, the state is expected to be 15,000 nurses short. First Health has begun a program in conjunction with Sandhills College, Community College, to begin recruiting people, even at the high school level, to encourage people to go into the healthcare field, and in essence, almost to promise them employment if they go through the program and successfully graduate. So there are always forces beyond what we can control at the local level, and I think they're doing a great deal to try to do what they can to support the community in ways that may not be purely economic for them. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ficklin.
Thank you. Couple of reminders. One is that the new parking regulations will go into effect July 1st. We're still on schedule, I presume. Information is available also on Hot Topics.
Yes, yeah, we're working towards it. So the signs will be moved. They said this week, and it's Tuesday, so they still have a few more days.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And speaking of Hot Topics, there is an update. STR information is updated on Hot Topics under STR. So if you're so inclined, you can see the good work that our staff, with the aid of the Granicus system, are doing, and we are moving forward. I attended, along with Councilman Farrell, on June 18th, which was last week, the third focus group meeting for the rewrite of the PDO. It is moving along as well. We were able to review several chapters, had some conversations around fencing and a variety of things. We also put together a schedule through the end of October of our upcoming meetings, one of which, by the way, is a community meeting, which will be held on August 13th from 4 to 7. So you will be hearing more about that as we get closer. The Pinehurst Business Partners was supposed to meet yesterday evening at Wee Pines, but unfortunately it got canceled because of the heat. So reschedule in September, so more to come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. At the NAC meeting, there was a presentation on volunteer opportunities for the U.S. Kids activity, and I can't tell you how much fun that is. I did that a few years ago, and just being able to watch these fabulous young athletes perform and contribute to that, I highly recommend thinking about volunteering for the U.S. Kids opportunities, and there's plenty of different positions available. Went to the More 100 meeting where NCDOT did a review of all the projects they were planning on doing on the next few years. Interestingly enough, there was no mention of the circle, which was 2 days before the SMPO. I guess they wanted to let the big reveal wait for the SMPO meeting, but it was kind of surprising. But there are a lot of projects coming up, and besides the circle, which is not to start probably till at least 2030, there's a lot of nearer-term projects that are going to be going to affect a lot of the community. So it's wise to keep an eye on that. Like Barb said, we went to the PDO rewrite focus group, reviewed the 3 chapters, draft chapters. Looks like it's coming along pretty good, I think. Talked about signs, which is always a confusing and complicated area, to tell you the truth. And also, we all expressed a concern on, and I don't know if, Doug, if you have any more new news on this, Senate Bill 205, which started out as a small swimming pool regulation bill, which was hijacked into a total development regulations for all 100 counties and 550 municipalities across the state. So we're all just a little disappointed on that and kind of waiting to see how that resolves before we can move forward on some of the items on the PDO rewrite. That's it.
I don't have a formal knowledge on it, but rumors are that it's looking less and less likely that it'll pass.
Well, we need to know, obviously, because a lot of the potential changes would be nullified if that were to, in fact, stay in place.
Yeah, so they're likely to either conclude the session or at least pause it before the 4th of July holiday. So if it's not done before then, it's probably not going to happen at all.
Okay, good. We should stay tuned on that one, obviously. Thank you.
Yes.
Is there any thought that they might strip the portions that didn't have to do with the 2-page swimming pool out and just do the swimming pool?
They might just do, the actual swimming pool portion, yes. And while I've interrupted, Kristen, who is on the agenda later this meeting, wants me to notify everyone that she has already posted about health advisory and heat advisories on the village social media sites. So,
In case you haven't noticed, it's warm outside, right?
Great. Jack, anything more?
Oh, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. You reminded me that Doug and I attended a meeting just the other day with all the mayors and town managers. Excuse me. They reiterated their unanimous opposition to the bill that is moving forward that imposes a lot more restrictions on the ability of all the municipalities here to manage growth. And they are also, of course, still following the proposed ETJ legislation, which they also all unanimously feel is would hinder the little ability they have to manage growth from that area. So the municipalities are united in this, and they are doing what they can, but the action is all in Raleigh. Okay. All right. Anything else from anyone else, Jack? No? Okay. All right. Let us move on to the consent agenda, item 5. All the items listed below are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held unless requested by a member of the village council. So the 4 items we have are the June 10th special meeting minutes, the June 10th closed session minutes, the June 10th regular meeting minutes, and the June 10th work session meeting minutes. So unless someone has an item they'd like to discuss, well, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion adopted. Okay. That ends the consent agenda. Let us go to the next item, item 5, which is public comments. Does the village clerk, have we had any public comments that we do? Okay. And this time, if you have not signed up to make public comments, you may still do that. Come forward and make some after we call upon the person who has signed up. Yes. I recognize him. Yeah. I think it's Lou. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Lou Walker? Lou Mauer? Well, you can please introduce yourself and come forward.
I'm Lou Maurer. I live at 71 Juniper Creek Boulevard, and I'd like to discuss the sidewalk. When the engineer's report came out a couple months ago, I asked this council to sit with me so that I could discuss with everyone, including the engineering firm, the problems with this sidewalk project. Twice I asked for this, and twice I was denied an audience. So here I am. And the digging has started, and the destruction of my neighbors' front yards has started, and a lot of other stuff has started that supposedly was not supposed to happen. Namely, today I noticed there's pink ribbons around several trees, indicating they're going to be taken down. This flies in the face of the promise that we were made. The first time, no mature trees were going to be taken down. The second time, only 2 trees might be taken down. And now I count 9 ribbons around these trees. I know I'm not the only person in Pinehurst that objects to taking down the trees. I also object with the loss of the country charm that we all moved here for when these trees come down. So, the next time I'm here, it will be to tell you, I told you so. But the problem with that is, I told you so's don't put the trees back in the ground. They don't give the taxpayers back their money. They don't fix the people's front yards. And they don't give us back the country charm that we all moved here for. It's going to be gone forever. So, the next time I come to stand here, it won't be to say, I told you so. It will be to say, you're fired, all of you. As a taxpayer and a citizen of this place, you work for me. And I'm going to come here and look you all in the eye and tell you you are fired.
Thank you, Lou. Is there anybody else who would like to come forward and make some comments? Hearing none, that will end our public comments section, and we'll move on to item 6 on the agenda, which deals with resolutions. The first resolution is 25-22, which is changes to the position and classification pay policy. I assume we have some people coming forward, and I assume there'll be some interesting questions from council.
Yeah, so while Angie and David come up, I'll do a brief introduction. So this is a wage study. We actually have talked about this. We discussed a little bit at our retreat back in the winter, and this was something that we wanted to do going forward, make sure that we were adequately paying our employees and according to the market. So David has done a big study on this, and he'll present the findings. But we've also looked at a lot of our other benefits, and so later on in the agenda, we have those as agenda items. We didn't want to come to the council like piecemeal over the next several months, so we kind of combined them all, so we'll discuss them all tonight, and we'll have a better picture what the overall compensation and benefits of our village employees looks like. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for having us tonight. This is the annual event that we come and talk about compensation, the compensation plan, and adjustments we would like to make to that. This year we contracted again with Central Pines Regional Council for position and pay class study. David Hill was the project manager for this study, and he is here tonight to do a presentation for you. David, just to give you a little bit of background on David, he retired from Caldwell County after 23 years as the HR director. He has both private and public sector experience, having worked with unionized private sector establishments as well as state and local governments in North Carolina. David received his bachelor's degree in economics from UNC Asheville and has over 40 years of experience in HR management. Specialties include employee benefits development, labor contract negotiations, development of policies and procedures, federal contract compliance, employee and management training, compensation and class analysis, conflict resolution, and affirmative action and EEO compliance. He's also a U.S. Army veteran. So with that, I am going to turn it over to David so that he can go through his PowerPoint. Here we go. And I'm going to try to do the slides here.
Thank you, Angie. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you this evening. And as Doug said, my presence here is the culmination of pretty close to 6 months worth of work with your staff. And the PowerPoint that I will use will provide an overview of that 6 months worth of work. So as I go through it, please stop me at any time. I'm primarily going to talk to you about process and procedure and methodology. And as we begin, the expected outcomes of this is to take a look at the village of Pinehurst and compare your market competitiveness to an identified market. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. And then make recommendations that support the village's recruitment and retention initiatives. But just briefly, in these bullet points that you see here, we began by identifying the market. And again, we'll take a look at that in a moment. We conducted employee kickoff sessions where we met with groups of employees to explain the study, explain our process and procedure, and talk to employees about the importance of their participation. And their participation was the completion of a 12-page position description questionnaire. That questionnaire was 12 pages of employees explaining to us in great detail all of the elements that make up their position. We then met individually with department directors, talking about their department, reviewing organizational charts. We then met with employees to talk more in detail about their particular position. While all of that was going on, we were collecting data from the market local governments, and then began our comparison and analysis of their positions as they compare to yours. And in local government in the state of North Carolina, and I'm sure in every local government in every state in the United States, there are no two jobs exactly alike. And that's the importance of that position description questionnaire, because we also ask employees to provide to us the percentage of time that they spend working in each of their activities. That helps us better compare their position to similar positions in other local governments. From all of that information, we developed some preliminary findings, preliminary recommendations, came back, met with Doug and Carlton and Angie, began the review of that preliminary information and began working through that until we came up with the final recommendations that are presented this evening.
Let me ask one question. When was the last time we conducted a paying classification study in the village of Pinehurst?
For village-wide,
Well, comparable to this, I guess. I don't know.
2014.
14, thank you.
Typically, we've been doing about a third of the positions each year.
And real quick to add on to that, so one issue that we'd have with doing a third each year is that, it may have been recommended that some employees move up a grade, but then that would put them out of internal equity, and so we'd have some issues there, and so maybe they did move or they didn't move. What we liked doing this time was that we reviewed everyone at once, so it was much easier to look at internal equity amongst our village employees.
When you do everyone at once, how often do you need to do another one?
Well, we were considering every couple of years.
Every couple of years.
Right. So there won't be another full village-wide study next year. Unless drastic things happen.
Thank you.
Part of your study also included us reviewing and updating all of your job descriptions. We next will take a look at some different slides that are nothing more than a photo snapshot of your workforce at the beginning of the study. And we do this with every study. We take this snapshot so we will have an idea of what your workforce looks like at the beginning of the study. This is looking in the mirror at the village of Pinehurst. This is not a comparison of your workforce to the identified market. This is just taking that snapshot to give us and provide us the opportunity to establish some initial benchmarking of certain data. And as I go through and I talk about information that we look at, information that we consider, I'll talk to you about a mature workforce. And in a mature workforce, our definition of a mature workforce is that you have an average years of employment between 8 and 10 years. And when I look at the data in any workforce, I'm looking for standard deviations, I'm looking at the typical bell curve. But in a mature workforce, whatever that element is or that data field is that I'm considering or examining, I should be able to find about 2/3 of your employees in the middle 1/3 of that bell curve. That bell curve also represents a pay grade range with the minimum or entry-level salaries over on the far left side. The middle section is where you typically find the midpoint or what's known as the market value of a position. And then the far right side would represent the maximum salary for that particular pay grade. So in the next slide, I take a look at, well, first off, I must apologize. I have a technical inability to recreate a bell curve. So my bell curves sometimes look like St. Louis arches. Sometimes they look like other geographic or geometric figures. But that's the best I can do to recreate a bell curve.
Can you go back one slide just for a minute, please? Is the concept of the bell curve applicable to all the statistics you studied or just compensation salary range, if you will?
Now, all of the data of a workforce that I'm looking at, and that could be salary, that could be performance, but of course in your study we did not consider performance, but in practically every element of a workforce analysis.
Just as a practical matter, I would guess if you looked at the distribution of years of service, that's not a bell curve. You won't have as many people who are more than 25 years, if that's the right number, as you'll have under 2 years or under 3 years. It will be skewed left, if you will.
Yeah, and that actually is in the first slide that we'll look at. And there's where I'm looking at that average years of employment. Our defined average years of employment for a mature workforce is 8 to 10 years. And
Can you say that again?
So that's the median, but it's not a normally distributed curve around 8 to 10
exactly.
years.
So
right.
you can see I've put my poorly designed bell curve up there that represents a 20-year career. So if I'm looking at a 20-year career, and you do have an average years of employment of 8, so you do meet our definition of a mature workforce. But you can see that within that 20-year span, the majority of those are on the far left side. So in the data points that you see in the bottom left, you can see that you've got 22% of your workforce. And again, this is a snapshot at the very beginning of the study. That 22% of your employees have been with you less than 2 years. And you're getting very close to half of your employees being with you less than 5 years. But you also have a number of long-serving employees. So here I'm just taking a look at, and I can tell you that in all the studies that we do, if I were showing you this graph for every other local government in the state of North Carolina, every one of them would look just like this. This also is a good demonstration of recruitment and retention. The recruitment effort being on the far left side, and the retention efforts being distributed in those much smaller. And what these bars show you are the number of employees who came to work for you in each of those calendar years who are still with you, or at least were still with you at the beginning of the study. And if we followed those highest bars on the left over the next 3 to 5 years, you would see that they would very soon begin looking like those bars to the right side. Okay.
Let me ask another question. I'm trying to add up these numbers of employees, and it looks like we're at a little over 200 there. And of course, our workforce is significantly smaller than that. So how am I miscounting this?
Less than is, less than 5 includes the less than 2.
Is that correct?
Yes, like the 2-year group is included in the 5-year group. The 2 and the 5-year group are included in the 10-year group.
You can't sum all three of those numbers.
I realize that.
Some are duplicative.
Okay.
So I think at the beginning of the study, employees on the payroll were right at 160. Okay. And what we're looking at in this chart is how long have employees been in their current position. And again, a typical chart of this kind is almost a mirror of the first chart that we looked at. Most employees have not been with you long enough for them to have advanced or taken advantage of career ladder opportunities. So most of your employees are going to show up on the far left side. So without going into detail of that, your average years of employment in position is a little over 4 years. And that's, again, typical of local government in the state.
And this is saying there's one employee who's been in the same position since 1995, and one from 2000 and so forth.
Yes.
Angie, do you want to point out which one's you?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to point out which one's you?
I'm in 2008, actually. There's probably 2 or 3 of us in that bar.
What is it about local governments that have a hard time either retaining or the turnover seems to be high in your estimation?
A lot has to do with the actual kind of work. Law enforcement, public service kind of work. And then there's always the pay element that comes in as a factor, but I think the greater weight is the actual kind of work. A public utilities employee or a public works employee being called out at 2 o'clock in the morning to fix a water line break, or
The largest component of our workforce is in public safety, fire and police.
What is our average turnover number of people been over the last few years? All reasons, retirement. I don't think we've had death, but retirement.
Yeah, I think the last one, I think I gave this to the mayor here not too long ago, and I think our turnover is right, 13, is it 13? 13, 14%?
Yeah.
14%, so that'd be
So-
20 people-ish.
Including
Roughly.
retirements,
Right, for all reason, whatever the reason is.
Right.
now there's a lot of information on this chart. This is showing the distribution of employees' salaries and measuring their salary as the percentage above the minimum salary for their pay grade range. Your pay grade ranges are 50%, which means the maximum salary for each pay grade range is 50% greater than the minimum salary. Now, typically when I look at this chart, it also is a mirror of those first 2 charts. It pretty well mirrors or is a representation of employee salaries in relation to their pay grade range, as a factor of their length of service or time in position. And when I look at your first two charts, with the greater weight of those graphs, bars on the left side, I would expect to see more bars on the left side because employees have not been with you long enough for their salaries to have advanced normally. But when I look at this chart, and then I'm taking a look at the other information that we're considering, my initial interpretation of this chart is that your pay grade ranges were not competitive, that you're having to bring employees to work at salaries further up in the grade range to meet the market competitiveness for those positions that you're bringing to work. The information on the bottom right is data that I collected from what's known as a market study last year. And the data on the bottom left side is the data at the beginning of this current. So even in that very short period of time, a year ago, you had 9.8% of your employees who had salaries less than 2% above the minimum salary. Over on the far left side, you can see that that percentage is now down to 7.38. And then I won't go through each one of them, but the average salary a year ago was 19.5% above minimum. It's now 20.7%.
Just to be clear, this is just Village of Pinehurst employees. This is not the market that you surveyed.
No, these are those snapshot photos of your workforce.
Oh, that's a glass half full type of analysis. However, the assumption is that our pay grades are right. And if they were right to the market, then that would be, we'd be fairly aggressive as far as keeping people paid at the right level. But, the important point you're making is that relative to the market, this is a little skewed.
And here's again where you're looking in the mirror at yourself.
Right. We think we're doing a great job, but wait a minute, there's an external factor here that comes into play, and that's why it's like it is.
Jack, I agree with your point. I had a different reaction to looking at this, and Doug or Angie, we don't necessarily, when we hire someone new, there's nothing that says they have to start at the minimum. We take a look at their experience, and a police officer with 15 or 20 years experience coming into work for us isn't going to necessarily start at the minimum for whatever that pay rate.
I'll let Angie.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Depending on what they bring to the table, we're going to try to put them at the right pay. But we do take into consideration internal equity, so we don't want those folks to leapfrog somebody with similar experience and they've been here for a number of years.
But when we get a few more slides down, there's a proposed pay plan.
Correct.
And there you show the minimum, midpoint, and maximum, and the midpoint is 25% above the minimum. The range is 50%, and the midpoint is 25. So if we look at the bar, which is right at the top of your bell curve representation, which is right on 20%, those would be people who are earning the midpoint, effectively. This is relative to the minimum, but if you add these percentages, you say, well, where are we in that range, minimum to maximum? And at 25%, they're at the midpoint. And anyone to the right of that is actually between the midpoint and the maximum range.
Correct.
And the bar on the very far right at the maximum is 8 people. That says there are 8 people who are at the maximum for whatever their pay grade is.
Correct.
Their pay grade could be anywhere on the grade range. It could be grade 9, it could be grade 40.
Correct.
So it doesn't really tell us what we're spending in dollars, only in relative to the grade range.
Correct.
I just want to be sure that I understand the numbers we're looking at here.
Slowing you down, sorry.
There's an old saying in business I used to be in, someone will say, well, it's not about the money. And the answer to that is, it's never about the money, it's always about the amount. And I think that's what we, the good news is that you all have reflected in the budget that we adopted a conservative estimate for the cost of this, meaning we're ahead of the game before we even get to the first day of the fiscal year.
Correct.
Then we have to figure out, well, what are the adjustments that we want to make to be competitive without starting an arms race to acquire and retain talent.
The next two slides, this one and the one who follows, are taking a look at the last 10% of your employees who came to work at the beginning of the study. Again, we do this kind of analysis just to see if there are any departments that are standing out or are there issues within any particular department. But also a consideration of this kind of data is those largest departments that make up a local government are going to have the greater opportunity to bring employees to work. And and you can see from this chart. So if we look at the last 10%, which were 16 employees, and we look at that from just a department standpoint, police department brought in 5 of those last 16, and then followed by fire. And then you can see the rest of them. And then in the next slide, we actually take a look at the specific classification. And again, police officer would be at the top of that list, followed by firefighter and so forth. And again, I'm looking at these two charts. There's nothing there that stands out to me that would cause any concern. This is a typical representation of a municipal government. Okay. So now we'll move to the actual study. So when we take a look at the market, a very unscientific method, I look at Google Maps. I locate where I'm going to be conducting the study. I then take a look at about an hour's driving distance from here. And I do that primarily because greater than 90% of your employees will not move to another part of the state to go to work for another local government. Will they move because of a spouse? Maybe. Managers move, department directors move, some technical professional staff will do, but greater than 90% of a local government employee group will not. So then I start taking a look at, within that hour's drive, there are going to be hundreds of local governments. And it's not efficient to the study to take a look at 100 different local governments, but who are those that are most similar? But then I have to be careful with that because I don't want to not include a good representation of all of those local governments that make up your market. So the end result of taking a look at all of that is who are your direct competitors? And that could be a very large local government, that could be a very small local government. But when I take a look at that market, and I do so in conversation and conjunction with the management staff, talking with department directors, who are those competitors? And here are those 16 local governments that most of your employees could go to work tomorrow morning. All they would have to do is pull out of their driveway and turn left instead of right, and probably could go to work at any local government up there.
Have we, I mean, this is a little bit of this is geography, obviously. Have we tried to ask First Health, as being one of the largest employers in the area, what is their geography that they draw workers from?
We did not in this study.
I know a number of them, and they drive from Laurinburg. They drive from, be surprised how far they will go to work.
We had people who used to drive from Roland here. So.
I just want, if we're thinking of geography, they, as one of the larger employers, obviously, could give us some insight as to what is our geography that we draw from, so to speak.
So then what do we do with the data that we collect? Every one of your positions has a worksheet that looks very similar to this. This is taking each one of your positions, each one of your classification titles, and then comparing it to those similar positions in the other local governments. The example I'm going to use this evening is police officer. Everything above the blue line is the market. And the market specific to that position, police officer. This is not comparing police sergeants, this is not comparing police chiefs, nor is it comparing HR directors or village managers or any other position. This is data specific to police officer. And the data above the blue line that you're looking at, the first column or the title or the column titled MIN is the minimum or entry-level salary that each of these local governments has established for this particular position. The next column, the midpoint, is exactly what that stands for. That's the midpoint of their pay grade ranges, followed by the maximum, followed by the actual average salary of police officers in each of these local governments. The column titled CR stands for compa ratio. That's a measurement that I look at when I'm looking at all of this data. That merely is a relative positioning of a salary to the midpoint. And again, the midpoint is really not the correct term to use for that position. That is the market value, the market rate, the salary that you typically would find an employee who's been in their position 8 to 10 years. Their salary typically would be found at that midpoint or market value. I then measure just a different way of looking at salaries. In the chart we looked at, percentage above minimum. Because when I take a look at midpoints, you can see in the column titled range that your range is 50%. But there are some ranges up there that are 65%. Clayton is at 81%. So there's no consistency in that calculation or administration of pay grade ranges in each of these local governments. So I do look at compa ratio. I probably give greater weight to percentage above minimum because of the varying differences of those ranges. Below the blue line, you can see that the average range is 55.9%, and the median is 51%. Immediately below the blue line is your pay grade range and salary for that particular position. So for police officer, you currently have that position in grade 20, which has a minimum or entry-level salary of $50,944, and the average salary of a police officer in the village of Pinehurst was $53,415. Now, there's a lot of information on this chart. If you look at the very bottom row, market deviation, average, there's where I take a look at your pay grade range, your grade 20, and compare it to the average range, and I'm also comparing it to the median. But in the bottom row, you can see that your minimum or entry-level salary for a police officer is 2.8% below the average minimum. The average minimum for the market, $52,425.
And what was ours?
Say again?
What was ours? Pinehurst was average at 50,944?
Yeah, that's our mid.
That's our minimum.
That's our minimum.
That's
What's Pinehurst's average?
53,415.
And the
in the column titled salary.
Okay, and the average for,
The market is 57,771.
okay, now I got it. Thank you.
And then if you look at the very bottom row,
Mhm.
your average salary is 7.54% below the market average. So your average salary for police officer at 53,415 is 7.5% below the market average of 57,771. Over on the bottom right side, you can see the 10.37. That's a measurement of your average salary to the median. Your median, the market median is 59.5. While the average is 57.7, the median is 59.5. So you're 7.54% below the market average. You're 10.37% below the market median.
When I looked at this, what kind of jumped out to me is that, relative to Aberdeen, where the two closest geographic towns, obviously Aberdeen and Southern Pines, were round numbers 10% above Aberdeen, 2% above Southern Pines, but we're substantially 10% or more below Moore County. So without talking about Clayton or Fuquay-Varina or what have you, with kind of different geographies, what, if anything, what insight do you draw from that?
Here's where I don't look at individual local governments. I'm comparing Pinehurst to the market. I'm not comparing Pinehurst to Moore County. I'm not comparing.
Oh, but I am.
Yes.
As you pointed out, I don't know that the police officers are going to move from Davidson to Pinehurst. Maybe they will, I don't know.
They will drive from Sanford to Pinehurst.
They might move from Sanford to Pinehurst, but Sanford is another one almost 20% above us. Sanford's bigger. I could think of a lot of reasons why it might be different. I have harder time understanding why Moore County would be different, other than they've decided at a different, would that be different grades that they hire people at, or different compensation at the same grade?
Their grades are completely their grades. They may not line up exactly with ours as far as numbers and things like that. But you grab the data, so I'll let you speak to that.
I conduct the studies for Moore County, and their market is somewhat similar to yours, but most of the market comparisons for Moore County are other geographically close county governments, as well as Pinehurst and Southern Pines and Aberdeen and some of those close municipal governments.
So are you saying that Moore County, when they set their compensation ranges, are comparing themselves to Richmond County or Montgomery County, not to Pinehurst or Southern Pines?
It's a combination of both groups.
Okay.
While your group only includes one county, Moore County's study would be about 50% counties and 50% municipal governments.
Thank you.
So when I take a look at this data, the data that you see above the blue line is data that was current as of the time each of these local governments provided the information to me. If you look at the gray-scaled column, the column that's titled 3%, there's where I'm forecasting that the market data on or shortly after the beginning of the new fiscal year is going to increase 3%. So on average, the information I have is that the average of that market is going to increase 3%. So then that moves the marker from a minimum market average of 52.4 over to a minimum that's probably going to be right at $54,000. So my recommendation for this particular classification is to move it from the current grade 20 to the new grade 21. Now, the new grade 21 is going to be slightly above the projected 54,000, but if I left that position recommended to remain in grade 20, the minimum would move up, but it would only move up to the current market average of the 52,000.
The gap from one grade to another is basically 5%.
It's 5%.
So if we move people from grade 20 to grade 21 doing the same job, that's a 5% raise for them. And relative to the midpoint, that puts us in line with the midpoint. We're 4.8% below that.
Yes. So currently, you're 2.8% below if you're just measuring the minimum or entry-level salary. But then, if I'm forecasting correctly that the market's going to increase 3%, then that's going to move you to 5.8% below the market average. So here's some of that subjective portion of the study where I'm taking a look at all this data, forecasting, knowing where everybody currently is, but then forecasting where they're going to go, and then trying to figure out, well, does Pinehurst need to leave a police officer in grade 20 or to remain as competitive in the market as they are? Is grade 21 a better recommendation? And based on my information, analysis, and understanding of where the market probably is going to go, my recommendation is that this particular position move from grade 20 to 21. Now, this evening, I'm just going to use police officer, but the explanation and narrative that I've given you is the same process and procedure I use for every one of your positions.
Question for you on this, on your analysis there. My perception when I went through this was everything is just based on extrinsic issues, basically just money that we're looking at, correct? So there's nothing in there that talks about the crime rates and risks to the police officers, nothing that talks about the amount of calls per day, nothing talks about how many, third shift versus first shift versus things like that, correct?
This is just
simply extrinsic, no intrinsic issues. Okay, and I appreciate the information. It's good to have this information, but that is a huge factor also, and we are one of the safest places in the state. And how does that play into the fact of that, where and I don't know the crime rates of the other places, but I would assume that if we're the fourth safest place in the state, then there can only be 3 ahead of us in this chart. Yet there's a whole lot more of them that have a whole lot more pay that are doing there. Okay, thank you.
Surprisingly, I have heard in the past the argument that police officers, when they come here, there's not enough to do. They don't have the action, so to speak, you would get in a larger metropolitan area, which is more to some people's liking, and that has been a negative.
Jack, I think that's insightful, okay, because we see the same thing in other fields, and to use medicine on there, when you have hospitals that are major trauma centers, it recruits the adrenaline-driven folks versus when you have folks that are more in the twilight of their career and don't like waking up after 10 o'clock at night, or they want to go to bed at 10 o'clock. How about that? They don't want to wake up before it's time in the morning. They have a much easier time recruiting older folks, but a tough time recruiting the younger folks.
Well, I don't recommend we change our environment.
I totally agree with that. I guess the point I'm bringing up on this whole thing is let's keep that in mind.
I understand.
Because it does skew the extrinsic issues that we're looking at here.
I understand.
Jeff, I would follow up on that, and I'm sorry neither Chief Webb or Chief Cluston are here, because when I met with them, I asked about the concept, and they did not say that money was the primary difficulty in recruitment. Some of it was these intrinsic things that you're talking about. I have a cousin who wanted to be a trauma surgeon. When he was doing his internship and residency, he wanted to be in downtown Detroit, not out in the suburbs, because that's what he was going into medicine to do. So I think these are factors, but they're not the only factors. I think is spot on.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
So we next took a look at your pay plan, your pay grade, the number of pay grades, the range, the difference between each of your pay grade ranges. And you can see that, again, your pay grade range is 50%. The differential from one grade to the next highest grade is 5%. And you currently have 27 grades. The market average range is 56%. The average differential is 5%. So you're in line with the market. So I would not recommend any changes in your pay plan regarding ranges and differentials. So your proposed pay plan, for the most part, is your current pay plan increased 2.9%. But I did add a couple of additional pay grades at the higher end. And I think, and Angie, I may need your assistance here, but I think your current lowest position is in grade 12.
Yeah, it's either 12 or 13. Yeah, it's in the policy that I've attached, but yeah.
So I'm recommending that you keep grades 9, 10, and 11 in case there's an opportunity that you may need to use those for a part-time or temporary position or a seasonal position. But probably in fiscal year 26, 27, you probably could eliminate those bottom 3 or 4 grades. But my recommendation is to maintain your current pay plan, which is a 2.9% increase over the current, maintain the 50% range, maintain the 5% differential, and that keeps you pretty much in line with where the market is, just considering the pay grade ranges and differentials. Okay.
I think, Angie, there is a proposal to increase the grade of some employees, that's not all 160. Would they, and just moving them, if they're in the same position in the range, moving them up as a 5% increase, is the 2.9 the total across all employees?
Yes.
If I'm one of those employees that gets moved up a pay grade, am I effectively 7.9? The
Yes.
5% for the pay grade plus 2.9, that pay grade being adjusted?
Correct.
That would, thinking ahead, if we were to pass this resolution, that would occur when, effective when?
July 1st, which would show up on, I think, the July 18th pay.
And of course, the big question is, what is our 2026 fiscal year budget? Does it accommodate this? And as I recall,
It does.
the answer is yes.
Yes.
It has this baked in, so to speak.
Yes.
A week from today.
Right. My question is there are 42 positions that will move a grade, according to the additional agenda details that you provided us.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's actually a little bit more than that because I counted a couple of positions only once, like if it was a 1 and a 2, I counted them as 1.
That's okay.
But yeah.
So when we say 42 positions, we're saying 42 people, is that correct?
No, you're saying
Okay.
42 positions.
42 positions.
Correct.
People.
It could be more people.
Okay, well, because we have 42 positions moving 1 grade, 18 positions will move 2 grades, and 3 positions will move 3 grades. So that's not 63 people. That's more than 63 people.
Correct, because if you look, for instance, a firefighter is moving 1 grade.
Mm-hmm.
We have more than 1 firefighter.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, so that could be 5 or 6 plus people. Could be 25 people.
All the people in that grade are moving if the recommendation is to go from X to Y.
Anybody in that title would move up and get the
What
5%.
what is the conversion from the number of positions that will move grades to the number of people?
I can get that for you. I don't have that with me tonight.
Because it's
We're constantly recruiting for some positions.
We are.
Does this anticipated potential increase, has it been thought through that this is going to make our recruiting more effective, or we're going to be easier, or we're actually going to be able to get people a little easier?
The hope is that this will impact our ability to recruit a lot easier.
You haven't obviously tested this just yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Jack, to that point, so police officer is actually one of the ones that we looked at today, but it was one we had discussed kind of in detail because it was borderline like, hey, does this one need to move up a grade? But we also okay, this is also the position we have the most difficulty filling. So that probably tipped the scales towards us putting it in a higher grade.
That makes sense. Thank you.
I think in the email exchanges, what got baked into the budget was an assumed cost of 700 and something.
Yeah, so
And we think the actual cost is less than that by.
Yep, so we assumed, just 5% for everyone across the board just to give us some wiggle room. But yes, what is being proposed is less than that 5%, which is about 700-something thousand.
One other question from the additional data. This year, the merit range is 0 to 3%. And that's traditionally what we use, right?
Correct.
Okay. Those who earn 3% must demonstrate truly extraordinary performance. Remind me, in our system, how and who decides that for an individual?
The supervisors.
Supervisor, is there a reviewer above the supervisor, or is it solely a supervisor decision?
The supervisor, the department head. So let me back up. The department head does assign the raises, and then the managers review that and approve or not.
And
Okay.
for some perspective on that, at least the 4 years I've been here, no one's come close to a 3% raise.
Okay.
I don't know if it's ever actually happened.
Maybe once, a 2.98, maybe.
So other than the raw pay being increased, what other benefits that are tied to pay might also increase, like matching things and life insurance, you name it?
So 401k contribution would increase, the pension would increase,
Sick pay.
holiday pay, vacation pay, those type of things.
Those
And
are-
I like to say a vacation payout, because if somebody's not here,
I
if they're on
understand.
vacation, it's a wash, but yeah.
Those are ancillary but tied to the pay, okay, and they would increase proportionally.
Correct.
Other questions, comments?
Yeah, I'd have one comment more on the process. I mean, it's been a very complete analysis. It's given us a lot of background. Whenever we do the next one, I think it would be better if this process could be completed by March or April so that it's baked into the budget planning process rather than we passed a budget and now we find out could that be another number? Well, it turns out the timing just didn't work this year, but hopefully if it's 3 or 4 years from now, whenever we do the next one, we can just start it a little earlier and get it done, I would say March, April.
And we did estimate, like Doug said, we had some preliminary numbers at that time, so we were able to make a pretty good estimate of what the amounts would be. So we did factor those in, but yes, we certainly could start sooner.
We have a number of assumptions that get made every year in the budget. To the extent we can reduce the number of assumptions and deal more with concrete facts, that's always just better.
Sure.
Yep.
Clearly, the history of the village, long predating me, is they've done a very good job with this, so I'm not identifying a problem, but I think from a process standpoint, it's a better way to do it.
Thank you.
So as a result of the analysis and review and consideration of all the data, my recommendations are to adopt the recommended pay plan, and then within that pay plan, using the police officer as the example, assign each of those positions to the market-supported pay grade range. Again, police officer currently in grade 20 would move to grade 21. And then regarding employee salaries, I first developed a model based on a comp ratio model, again, looking at employees' length of service, time and position, relative position to the midpoint of their salary grade range. I then modified that model to be in line with your current personnel policies regarding salary administration. So my recommendation is, and in the next slide, you will see the implementation cost of adopting the new pay plan, assigning each position to the market-supported pay grade. The actual salaries of that recommendation, it would be the 526,760. And then to Mr. Farrell's question about associated costs, if you then took a look at the typical payroll associated cost of FICA retirement 401k, there would be an additional approximately 27% addition to the salaries for a total implementation cost of the $669,000. But then even knowing that those numbers are going to fluctuate a little bit as employees come to work or terminate or are promoted and so forth.
I have a question. Most of the grade increases were moving up one grade, and yet we have several that moved up 2 grades and others that moved up 3 grades. I'm curious to know what happened in those where we're moving up 2 or 3 grades. Is it a change of responsibility? Kind of tell us what that one's about.
I don't know the history of how positions ended up where they were. I took current data and made those comparisons, and based on those comparisons, there were some positions that needed to move up 2 grades and some that needed to move up 3 grades. I don't know the specific history of those positions or how they ended up being 2 or 3 grades behind, but taking a look at current information, comparing that to the current market for those positions, then the recommendation supported a 2 or a 3 grade movement.
So for some reason, those had just gotten less competitive, more out of line with the market, and a 1 grade change would not bring them back into line with the market.
Yeah, and I will add that as we looked at those, a lot of those happen to be supervisors, department head positions. Not all of them, but there's a mix. But it seemed like those positions had fallen behind more than our regular day-to-day frontline employees.
And some of that has to do with the timing. As Doug mentioned in the beginning, we were doing about 1/3 every year, and if it was recommended, for instance, for this department head to move up several grades, then that was going to put that person maybe ahead of 3 other department heads or even an assistant manager. We couldn't move that person because that person, the other positions weren't going to be studied till the next year, so we would hold off on that. So that's a lot. That is some of the reason for that.
So we'll be eliminating that dilemma by not doing the 1-3, 1/3 every 3 years.
Right. I think this process is a lot more, it's a lot easier to consider internal equity, but it is a very intense process to do the entire village at one time. That's why we would not be doing it every year. There may be positions that come up that their responsibility changes in an off year. We would consider looking at those one-offs during the off year if there needed to be changes, if there were significant amounts or significant changes in their responsibilities.
So is there something equivalent to what's used in the federal government called a desk audit to determine if the person's duties that they've accumulated over a period of time justify a grade increase without having to have them compete for the next level? How does that work in village government, or doesn't apply?
So we do have career progression where people can progress by getting certain certifications or that type of thing. You can progress. I'll use firefighter as an example. You can go from a firefighter EMT to second class and then to a first class. You don't have to apply for that in a competitive type of environment. If we have an opening for a fire captain, that would be a competition. Yeah, so you wouldn't automatically be moved up to that.
Remind me, in your grade chart, are there steps within the grades here, or it's just grades?
We don't really have steps per se for every position. Again, I'll use firefighter as an example. Firefighter, EMT, second class, first class, they're all in the same grade. If you move from EMT to second class, you do get 2.5%. So there are a couple of positions that do have that. Building inspector is another that you can progress a little bit within the grade.
Thank you.
What I'm saying on this is basically it's a reset to market pay, is what we're looking at here.
It is.
That was the exact intent.
Okay, so with that and what your recommendations, I will tell you from my perspective, I certainly support going to a market base on this, and I want to be in front of this, not behind it, where people are voting with their feet, and then we end up having a lot of other issues. One thing I will say on here, and I know this is the challenge, on the second part of your recommendation, if you go back a slide, was basically your progression that you're looking at. We're in the situation right now because the progression didn't quite work out as we'd hoped it over the past 11 years. And so now we're doing a relook on this. But there has to be a way that we're working with it. I would question the effectiveness of that as you progress more and more years. And so I would encourage a reevaluation on this a little bit more frequently than every 11 years. To come back to market.
Yes,
time.
absolutely.
Okay.
We plan to look at it again village-wide in 2 years.
I think that's appropriate
Yes.
to do that because the plan will not work as effectively as you think it's going to.
Correct.
Just as a practical matter, because I think we're coming close to considering the resolution 2522, that is both approving this new pay scale for these grades. It is adding a few grades, more grades than we've had before. Is it also the incorporation of the movement of certain pay grades from up 1 or up 2 or up 3? So it's all 3 of those things.
It is.
There's three attachments there, yeah.
As far as my presentation is concerned, the next slide says, thank you very much for allowing me to be here this evening.
It's very thorough. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, and look forward to that follow-up on positions and persons.
Made a note, yes.
Thanks very
absolutely.
much. Any other questions or comments before we're through? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 25-22, changes to the position classification and pay plan policy.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will go on to...
Read the word. I'm sure you the word's out.
The word's out.
Thank you, David.
Item B, under resolutions, which is consider Resolution 2523, reappointment of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee representatives for Clarendon Gardens, Donald Ross, East Lake Pinehurst Association, Monticello, North Lake Pinehurst, Pinehurst number 6, Pinehurst number 7, Pine Wild, Village Acres, and West Lake Pinehurst. Let me grab this in case we have a question here. 1 second. No, I don't want it. I saw one of these. Okay, this one has the names. I don't know if, since these are reappointments, these are not people who are unknown to us, shall we say.
Right.
But I think it'd be fair for those that are, if anyone's listening or anyone is in the audience who wants to hear the names, that I just read the names of the individuals that'll be part of the resolution that we may be adopting. So, for Clarendon Gardens, it's Ms. Fiona Fuller. For the Donald Ross area, it's Ms. Jennifer Tomlin. For the Lake Pinehurst Association, it is Mr. Jeffrey Hines. For North Lake Pinehurst area, it's Ms. Carolyn Jameson. For Pinehurst number 6, it's Mr. Kevin Fitzpatrick. For Pinehurst number 7, it's Ms. Kimberly Davis. And for Village Acres, it is Mr. Kevin McKinney. So I will, let me see if I concludes it. No, that's in the next one.
Yeah, these are just
These
the
are
reappointments. New
reappointments. The
people are the
Pinewell is
next
new.
resolution.
Right.
Okay,
Well, that's right.
okay, no problem. Okay, I'll entertain a motion, or if someone has a question, please ask.
I move to approve Resolution 2523, reappointment of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee representatives for Clarendon Gardens, Donald Ross, East Lake Pinehurst, Lake Pinehurst Association, Monticello, North Lake Pinehurst, Pinehurst number 6, Pinehurst number 7, Pinewild, Village Acres, and West Lake Pinehurst, with all appointments contained therein, effective July 1, 2025, to serve at the pleasure of the council until the end of their term on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Motion, second?
Quick question on the motion. The names that you read there did not include places such as Pinewild.
No, that's in the next motion.
Well, it's in the motion that just got made.
And this one on there.
Well,
also.
we reappointed, and now we're
Yeah,
appointing a new
we got,
person.
there should be,
But yeah, Pinewell,
I'm making a technical point. I'm not
You're correct.
proposing that.
it's actually in the next, it's also in the next motion. So it's in both motions. So we guess we can strike it from
I get from this one. Yeah.
2523, the reference to Pinewild.
Friendly amendment to strike those names which are listed in the next,
Okay.
I actually concur with that, which strike Pinewild, Village Acres, and Westlake from that. So I move to approve Resolution 2523, reappointment of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee representatives for Clarendon Gardens, Donald Ross, East Lake Pinehurst, Lake Pinehurst Association, Monticello, North Lake Pinehurst, Pinehurst number 6, and Pinehurst number 7, with all appointments contained therein, effective July 1, 2025, to serve at the pleasure of the council until the end of their term on June 30th, 2027.
Wait, let me make one suggestion. I think Village Acres and Westlake Pinehurst should be in that resolution because they're not in the 2528, which we'll take up in a second.
I think it's maybe just as Pinewild got duplicated. in
Yes,
there.
it was, it looks like.
And excuse me, I'm sorry, there is also another one that I just realized. In the resolution verbiage, it says Monticello, but in the actual resolution, it's not listed. Monticello is also not being reappointed. So the only reappointments are those on that first page, or in that second, 56 and 58.
So to get
57
this
and
right,
58.
which I agree with,
Thank you.
John, taking out Monticello and
So-
taking out Pinewild, right?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Anything else need to be taken out?
I think you're good.
I'm good now?
You're good.
Okay,
Just like the third putt's always the easiest, right? I move to approve Resolution 2523, reappointment of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee representatives for Clarendon Gardens, Donald Ross, East Lake Pinehurst, Lake Pinehurst Association, North Lake Pinehurst, Pinehurst number 6, Pinehurst number 7, Village Acres, and West Lake Pinehurst, with all appointments contained therein, effective July 1, 2025, to serve at the pleasure of the council until the end of their term on June 30th, 2027.
we've got a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we closed that one out quick. All right, now we go on to the next resolution, which is consideration of 2528, appointment of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee representatives for Country Club of North Carolina, Linden Road West, and Pinewild. And I will tell the names we're discussing now that are in the resolution formally are Mr. Greg Johnson for CCNC Neighborhood Advisory Committee, Mr. Mac Brown, the representative of Linden Road West area, and Mr. Joseph Shea as representative of the Pinewild area. So that is what's there. If anyone has any questions, otherwise I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 25-28, appointment of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee representatives for Country Club of North Carolina, Linden Road West, and Pinewild, with all appointments contained therein effective June 24th, 2025, to serve at the pleasure of council until the end of their term, June 30, 2027.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion adopted. Now we go on to Resolution 25-26, directing the clerk to investigate a petition for annexation received under North Carolina General Statute 160A-31, that is 150 Foxfire Road. Can we have a little discussion here, Doug?
Yeah, just to clarify, so all this resolution is doing is directing our village clerk to investigate and make sure that the annexation petition is appropriate, everything is, all the I's are dotted and T's crossed. We're not actually improving anything, just directing her to investigate.
Has this property submitted a request for annexation?
They have.
So we're just doing the background work to be sure that it is as it should be.
And so the state law is very, it's worded a little special, and it says that the village clerk is supposed to do it when directed by the council, and so we're just formally doing that at this time.
The site plan's in process.
Yes.
And expect, assuming that a formal resolution to annex, does that have to go through planning and zoning or just come back to us?
Yeah, it will
So
go to planning and zoning.
P&Z first and then to us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, to throw a wrench into this and make it a little more difficult, it is within Foxfire's non-annexation area, so we need approval from them, and so we're working on that, and eventually there will have to be a public hearing, and then the board will do a resolution to approve the actual annexation.
Okay, when you say the board, will this go through P&Z?
It will go to them first and then to village
Okay.
council.
All righty. Is there a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 25-26, directing the clerk to investigate a petition for annexation received under NCGS 160A-31, the Foxfire and Linden condos.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion adopted. And now we go on to Resolution 25-24, approving an additional employee holiday and additional vacation hours. So let's take this up and see what we have here. Angie, move forward.
It's me again.
Yes, we recognize you.
I don't think this
Go
will
ahead.
be quite as long, so, but I appreciate you taking, letting me stay on the agenda and talk about the recommendation that we're making. We reviewed our benefits, our holidays, and our vacation, and we would like to recommend changing our vacation accrual schedule as well as adding an additional holiday in fiscal year '26. We took a look at the League of Municipalities Fringe Benefits Survey, and we feel like we're lagging a little bit behind. I've put the data in the memo for you, so you can see that on average we're lagging back a little bit. So we would actually like to adopt a different accrual schedule that actually matches up to Moore County, and then we of course would adjust hours because we have 20-hour people, 30-hour people, 12-hour shifts, and 24-hour shifts, and we would like to adjust that with a ratio so that those groups are also earning the appropriate amount of vacation time.
Let me see if I'm reading the charts correctly. We currently, for the first year, you accumulate 80 hours.
Correct.
Okay. And what we're proposing is 96 hours for less than 2 years. Okay.
Correct.
And I'm sorry, but for an employee who works a 40-hour week, 80 hours is 2 weeks of vacation. That's what we're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. And looking across the line there, as we go out to the, I guess, the 25-year employee.
The survey goes to 25 years.
Right.
Yes.
If we are currently at 160, and what we're going to move is to 204, and I'm trying to understand, is these other communities they may be changing theirs also, but they're currently at 25 years, 185 and 189.
Yeah, and that's those are averages, but yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
which pertains to Sanford Moore County? Is it our line or the line above?
It's the second line.
Okay, so Sanford Moore County, who we just saw was paying better than we are, is actually also doing better currently than we are in the accrual of vacation hours.
Correct. Moore County is actually the line we're recommending down in the box, the next box below, where it says 96, 108, 132. That is actually, it mimics Moore County's accrual schedule, which they just changed.
Oh, they just changed that. So
in November.
we'd be matching them.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
One of the reasons why we're looking at this is particularly employees, if you only get 2 weeks of vacation for the first 5 years you work here, that's really difficult to get someone with experience coming from somewhere else to come here and only receive that 2 weeks.
Correct.
Question, if you come from another government agency or town, do you bring your vacation hours with you?
You do not bring your vacation. We will not accept a vacation. We accept sick time, but we don't accept a vacation. However, we do, as long as we can verify service, we will let you accrue at a higher level. So if you come in to work with us and you've got 6 years of service with another municipality, we will start you out at the 6-year accrual rate.
So we do essentially honor their service relative to this benefit.
We honor their service, but we don't let them bring in vacation time
I understand.
and add
Yeah,
to
they
their
can't
bank.
carry it forward.
But we do honor their service.
But
Other-
This has been a problem in the federal government where someone changes careers at a middle age.
Right.
And they had just left a job where they had, I don't know, 10 weeks of leave or whatever, and they coming into the federal government for the first time, and all of a sudden they're accumulating 2 weeks of leave.
Correct.
And it was a problem.
Right.
I don't know if they corrected it yet, but it was a problem. Okay.
And we haven't changed our vacation accrual. I've been here almost 17 years, and we have not changed our vacation accrual in 17 years.
On vacation accrual, is there a cap?
As far as how much you can have in your bank,
Yes.
there's a cap on what you can carry over. You can carry over twice in your bank,
Okay.
or twice what your annual accrual is. And then we're gonna change, so if you leave, you only get paid out for twice what you're able to carry over. But there's not a cap, so during the year, you can keep adding to that. But at the end of the year, anything over 2 times what you can earn rolls into your sick bank.
When we pay it out, we pay it at your current salary,
We do, correct.
but we accumulate a liability as
But
this
we do not pay out sick,
You're right. Sick leave does not have a cash value, is that right?
correct.
Okay, that's how it is. in the
Has a
federal
service value with the retirement system, but
Yes.
it does not have a cash value, correct.
So I'm accruing annual leave as an employee. Do we have use or lose here?
We do not.
We do not.
We have use or rollover.
The rollover.
Right,
Okay.
right,
well, I mean, unless you're at the 2 times your annual rate, then
correct.
you would lose it.
correct.
Oh, right. You're
But
excessive.
technically, you don't really lose it because it goes to your sick leave.
It goes to your sick,
And
so
that's-
you
so
don't,
there is, it's not a total loss.
it's not a total loss, correct.
Okay.
And out of curiosity, some of these are not integral multiples of the underlying assumed work week, which means you're earning a fraction of a day in theory. Do we round that?
So there's different rates for the different hours of the shifts. So in the chart here, we have a 12-hour shift and 24-hour shift. For
But if I work a
police and fire.
40-hour work week and I get 96 hours accrued, that's 2.4 weeks, if you will.
Yeah, you get,
Right.
It would be
You get 2 weeks, 2 days.
16.8
It's
days.
12 days, right.
Sorry?
It's 12 days, I think. 96.
Not 16, it's not a 7-day, no, of course not.
Yeah, 96 hours is 12 days for a 40-hour
Gotcha.
person.
You're packaging this with a additional vacation day also, is that correct?
Additional holiday, yes.
Additional holiday,
Yes.
excuse me.
From the same survey, we saw an uptick in the number of holidays that municipalities are offering. We did increase our holidays, if you recall, about 5 years ago. We were lagging a little bit behind by 1 day. The average 5 years ago was 11.7. We were offering 11, so we bumped it up to 12. And now, very similarly, the average is 12 point.
Walk me through this. We have 11 holidays currently, or did you say 11.7?
We have 12. We have 12 currently.
Okay, we have 12 currently.
Right.
And is that comparable with our neighbors, or how does it work?
The average is 12.7.
The average.
Oh, I thought I heard 11.7. No, it's 12.7.
5 years ago it was 11.7, so we increased.
Increase, it's 12.
Right now, it's 12.7, and we're recommending increasing that by one holiday. We're recommending Juneteenth.
So I look at the comparison with VOP, Aberdeen, Southern Pines, and Moore County, and it looks like we are the only ones asking for this additional holiday, that Moore County, Southern Pines, and Aberdeen are not. Is that correct?
The benefit summary that I showed you, that I emailed you, is that what you're referencing?
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, Aberdeen, Southern Pines, and Moore County only have 12 holidays. Correct. This would be one in addition to Moore County. Yes.
So, and actually, I mean, it somewhat aligns with the survey data and what have you, that, it seems appropriate that we'd add an extra holiday. But honestly, my reason for proposing it is I think it's a date of historical significance, and that's why I think it is important.
It's a state holiday as well as a federal holiday.
Right.
And although I am not a betting man, I thought we did this a year ago, that we added that to conform with the state calendar.
We talked about it at the retreat in December and said we'd be bringing it forward.
Yeah, that's what we did do. The state has it as an optional state holiday.
Right. It is not for the state, but it is for federal.
Right, so is this going to be an optional holiday for our employees?
No, we're proposing it be a holiday,
We
not
close?
optional.
Are we going to close?
Yes.
Right. Village
Juneteenth?
offices will be closed, ex-police and fire.
Except police and fire.
Except for police and fire.
Yeah.
So here's my question on this. You know where I'm going this, I think. First of all, I'm all for holidays and vacation days. I think it adds a lot of value to the employee, and it adds, we want to promote a balance of work life, so I'm 100% for this kind of thing. However, in looking at the detail, my analytical mind got involved in the detail here. If I look at the 150 employees that you described that would be affected by this and their years of service, and I added up the number of days that would be increased through the increased number of holidays, one holiday, and the additional vacation time, I came up with a total of 805 days that would be no longer someone at work. So it would be 805 employee days that we would lose through this process. And if I divide that by the number of work days there are in the year, which you take the 250 and you take 12 or 13 off, plus the sick days, I come up with close to 3.5 employees. So we are essentially reducing our staff on time or days worked by 3.5 employees. Now that's fine in a small department, like three employees, 4 employees. But when you talk about public safety and we've got, 30, 40 employees, you're essentially taking an employee out of that cycle. And is that built into the budget? Those employees in the 2026 plan and beyond? I'm not sure that we do, to tell you the truth, and the associated cost.
So holidays for public safety, we don't close the fire department and the police department for
I know we don't
for
close
those holidays.
I know we don't close these. That's
Right.
my point. These have to be their type of people, and we're
Correct.
reducing the number of potential employee hours by at least one, maybe maybe more in some of these departments, which concerns me. Not that we don't want to give this benefit, is that the concern is, have we budgeted for it by increasing the requisite number of staff that are allocated to these?
Right, so for the public safety positions, it's not like they're not coming to work. We are just paying them for the actual holiday. So that costs us about $18,000 for all of our public safety employees to pay out one additional holiday.
Yeah, but don't they want to take this additional vacation time?
Yeah, but very few of them are actually scheduled for that actual day because.
No, I'm not talking about scheduling down to that level of detail. I'm saying on a gross basis, you're taking this many employee hours, employee days out of our workforce. And have we accounted for that correctly?
Yeah, and I would agree for non-public safety, you're right, that we are removing that.
It applies across the
I think
spectrum.
to simplify it, by reducing the amount of time that people are working, you increase the amount of FTEs required to meet mission.
Exactly, better way to put it.
Okay? So, that's across the board. Each individual department needs to figure that out and identify what that is to increase the FTE, whether that's a 0.01, whether that's a 0.1, whether that's a 0.8, whether that's a 0.9, whether that's 1.2, whatever it is, they need to be able to figure that out, and we need to budget for it, is what I'm hearing Mr. Farrell say, and I concur with that. It needs to be budgeted in there. It needs to be looked at, saying, yes, we're going to give a competitive vacation, make sure we're not ending up being short here. Okay.
You know, with the extra vacation time, they'll be extra effective when they're actually at work. That's
I think it's an issue. I think, to me, it's something to, have we planned for it correctly? I mean, are we doing the other half of the work involved in increasing the holiday and or vacation? And I don't see it in any of the documentation to date.
Jack, I'm not arguing with your numbers because I think they're right, but I think maybe isn't the alternative. If I think about it from a standpoint of building inspections or application approvals, it just means that there'll be some incremental increase in the amount of time it takes because there's a fixed amount of approvals that have to be done, and there's one day less that people are going to be there to do them. They're not going to work faster. They're not going to work an extra hour to make up for that. It's just going to take longer to get that approved.
Oh, that's kind of my point. I assume that every department head calculated how many what resources they need to deliver the service they're entitled, they're supposed to deliver. And they don't overman, so to speak, or they don't necessarily underman. You try to get as close to the right number as possible. And assuming that the right number has been decided upon, which is in our budget 267.1 or whatever it is, we are essentially subtracting 3.5 people from that.
You're exactly right. The bottom line, if you have mission remain constant, the demands are constant, you increase the amount of time people are away through vacation and holidays, you now require more FTE to meet that mission. And what he's saying, which I totally agree with, is let's make sure we account for that. And so we don't start failing on the mission, we budget for what we need to do to meet mission.
Correct.
And that makes total sense to me, and I think that's a
Well
very
said.
reasonable stuff.
Thank you.
Make a suggestion then that we approve the additional vacation hours, and we review this additional holiday a little further. I think maybe when the state was factoring this in, the idea of it being an optional state holiday may have been factored in for supervisors or office heads who said, my door will be closed on X day, whereas I can manage this differently if it's an option, and I have some people who can come in to cover and some people who don't want to and want to take another day.
But that is only one of the 805 days we're losing.
I hear you, but one thing I have never seen a government, while it will give holidays, and we've added holidays over time in our country and state, I've never seen them take away a holiday. So before we give one, I think we need to have a real degree of certainty of what is the impact from a managerial standpoint as well as a financial standpoint.
Well, the question is this a package? I mean, is this holiday plus vacation packaged together, or can it be separated out? And why would we want to separate it out?
Well,
Right, I think that would be the point. Why would you want to separate it? I think we're trying to create a overall compensation package that is highly competitive in our workforce, in our market, and so.
Agreed, as long as we account for it properly on the.
But I think, Jack, the point is that the increased accrual does not reduce the number of hours worked. So back to Jeff's point, there's a mission to be done. If you take hours away by giving people a day off, you got to account for that. If you're doing an accrual, they're still working the same number of hours. It is a benefit, it has cash value, but it doesn't change accomplishing the mission.
Yeah, and I very much agree with what Jack and Jeff are saying, but I also feel like, employees can adjust if they're going to be off on Friday before a holiday, they were going to get a little extra work done on the other 4 days of the week. It's not like a lot of work is not going to be getting done.
Oh, this is a work harder?
Or, I'll give you the alternative to that.
Partially.
I'll give you the alternative to that.
I think Amazon just did that.
If the employee has a Monday holiday, they'll probably take a Friday for a vacation day.
I understand, but it still comes back to the vacation and let them use that. I don't think we need to get into those
I
weeds.
have no problem with the vacation.
Yeah, and I got no problem with vacation either, and I think it's a pack. I got no problem with giving the holiday also, and letting the managers manage this, because at their level they can do it. Jack's point, and I just rephrased it, so I give full credit to him on that one, it is just account for that. And that there is the component also, if you do have more vacation, you are more competitive, and people are more they are
It's
happier.
also less time that positions are empty where we're not getting any productivity.
And are they able to be more productive at work because of that? And I understand that, okay?
But I think the issues are separable in the sense that the holiday we're talking about is not until a year from now. And so we have ample time between now and then to decide whether to make that a holiday or not. But the accrual ought to begin with the fiscal year a week from today.
Agreed, but I,
actually, the recommendation is for the accrual to begin January 1st.
Fine.
Right.
That's easier because we go on calendar
Calendar year.
year, so it's easier
I'm fine with that.
if we make.
But and at a higher level, something that we have talked about in our retreats, where the only forecast headcount increase was for the library staff.
and fire, but yeah.
I asked at the time, do we really think with a 3 or 5 year forecast that we're only going to add 4 people? It's an accounting question, but it is also a headcount question.
I mean, this year we reduced the number of headcount, but.
Correct.
So, and I have no problem if you don't want to move forward with the Juneteenth holiday, but I don't see a reason to postpone it because the information's not going to be any different in 6 months. So if you don't want to do it, just say so.
No, I don't think that's, it's not a binary choice. We can take it up as John pointed out.
I would ask Angie, on an unknown scale, is this important in recruiting?
I think vacation is always important in
Obviously.
recruiting.
No, I look at it, I know I have in the past. If it's really important in recruiting, it's part of our efforts towards provide more equity to incoming employees.
Well, but I think we just made huge strides in adding to vacation. I'm not sure that one more day makes a completely different story.
And updating cash compensation.
Yeah.
As well.
Secondly, you had mentioned that we're mirroring more counties, which is the most generous of those. And as I look at the comparison of benefits among Aberdeen, Southern Pines, and Moore County, none of whom are adopting this, they're also not matching us in several other areas. So they're giving up something to be able to do the vacation, I'm sure, or whatever it is that is different and where they're focusing. So I wonder what this really brings to the table. There are apparently, according to your chart, 15 holidays that somebody's offering. I have no idea, I'm guessing the feds, but I'm guessing the feds, but I don't know.
Sometimes there are floating holidays.
And I have, and it relates to something Doug said, which is, there are many, many ways to honor a historic event. It doesn't have to be a holiday. And so, and besides there, you know, if we go to this, we're still missing a few. So I just wonder what the importance of adding this at this point in time is.
I want to be very sensitive about this because it's a sensitive subject, especially with Juneteenth, but we do have employees that it is very meaningful to them. And again, I said this earlier, but I'm proposing it not because it is a retention tool, but I think it's because it's the right thing to do, especially for
I
our
respect
employees,
that.
that it's meaningful to them.
I support giving them the holiday.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, Doug.
I think
I
we
would
should,
just like to see some type of recognition of the impact. Now, I don't know what that's, what form, I mean, if the numbers we have before, the $600,000 that we put into the budget, accounting for increases in pay and compensation, if this covers it, as far as my numbers here, fine. And I think a little bit of analysis on that, just to make sure we're covered, I think would be useful. And the impact of, on some departments, the unavailability of people because of the fact that they are granted and expected to take vacation, as a matter of fact.
This could be a combination Angie and Dana question.
Yes, of course, right.
The dollars are definitely the Dana question, but yes, I can get with Dana
I
and
think you
get
see,
some
you see where we're
specifics.
coming from, or at least where I'm coming from on that. Thank you.
well, let's see where that leaves us. I think John made the point that we can always add in the additional holiday, since it's not going to take place for another 12 months. So that can be done at any time. The vacation hours, we'd like to add in. I don't think there's any hesitation there on any of our parts. And we accrue it back to January 1, right?
Well, we'll start January of '26.
20, okay, so it starts in 26, so we've got time there. So, I mean, that's what I'm most comfortable with. The state recognizes Juneteenth as a optional state holiday, and I do think that's probably the best way I think I would see us going. I think that makes the most sense to conform with the state on this. But I would like to, I just want to tap the brakes before we start handing out holidays without just a little more data, especially since we have time, since the holiday isn't for almost a year from now.
So the alternative would be to approve the total package, holiday and vacation hours, is that correct? That's an alternative to what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying approve one and not approve the other one now, rather than approve them both.
My point was just that I think this is easily separable. I wasn't recommending that we do it, but there's no, I don't think there's any reason why we have to do them both. And if it is the will of council, if someone makes a motion and it passes, it passes.
Okay. Well,
I'll be happy to make
I'll
them.
turn my, oh, go ahead.
I'll be happy to make the motion then. I move to approve Resolution 2524, approving an additional employee holiday and additional vacation hours.
I'd like to,
I'll second that motion.
we're going to have a discussion now. I'd like to amend that motion. I'd like to amend it to approve just the additional vacation hours, and we'll take up the other item at another time. So, is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
But point of order,
Go ahead.
I think the person making the motion has to agree to the amendment.
What?
Have to vote on it, to the amendment.
Well, bottom line, at least three people have to say, take the holiday out. Okay? Right now you have two people saying, take the holiday out. You have two people saying, keep the holiday in. John, it's on you. Or Maybe you can abstain until Ty goes to the runner.
No, I'm primarily debating both the substance of what Doug said and the, let's call it the force with which he said it, which resonates with me. So while I think as a practical matter, we could consider these separately, I think I would prefer that we consider them together. And we'll vote that up or down as council. So I guess I am not supporting the amendment.
Okay, so then my motion is still on the table. That's been seconded.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 3 ayes. All those opposed? No. Oh, you lied. Okay, it's passed 4-1. Next item.
Thank you.
So Angie is also here to talk about our last one.
One
So
more benefit.
now you can see why we brought them all together once. So we,
Don't do that anymore. Keep it separate.
but go ahead, Angie. You can explain the retirement allowance.
Sure. I'll try to summarize this as best I can, but over the last several years on our workforce surveys, which we do annually, employees have often requested retiree medical insurance. They want to stay on the medical plan whenever they retire. We've looked at
To bridge to Medicare or something like that.
correct. They didn't give us those details, but yes, that would be the assumption. We have reviewed this several times since I've been here in my tenure, and keeping retirees on the health care plan we felt like was unsustainable because it becomes very, very expensive over time. Correct. And we've looked at it many times. We were trying to come up with an alternative that we could offer employees. It's certainly not a benefit that would make people 100% whole in retirement, but it is something. Aberdeen currently offers a retiree medical plan pre and post 65. The county also offers a very similar plan. Southern Pines does not.
Is that for all employees? I know we had the discussion relative to firefighters, but is that all employees that Aberdeen offers it for?
I think so, yes. Correct. So what we've come up with is a recommendation to offer a retiree benefit allowance. So this would give employees a monthly allowance to spend towards their health care insurance, towards their living expenses, whatever they deem appropriate until age 65.
This isn't a health savings account, right?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not a health savings account. And we explored those options as well. Health HRAs, HSAs, but because of the plans we have now, it would conflict with those. And in retirement, it would just cause a big problem for folks. So we've come up with the option of an allowance. Carlton is sitting up here because this is the risk management committee that came up with this, and he is the chair of that committee. But the benefit would pay employees as long as they've got a certain level of service, and in the policy you'll see those levels. It would pay them a certain percentage of the lowest healthcare plan we have, the premium, until age 65. The parameters we have put on it are you have to be a minimum age of 50, you have to be retiring with the retirement system, and you have to have so many years of service, consecutive years of service with the village. And you would, at 20 years, you would get 50%. At 25 years, you would get 75%. And at 30 years, you would get 100%.
You have a chart with that detail? I didn't.
100% of what? Of final?
Of whatever the premium is, the lowest paid premium for active employees. So for instance, we have a high deductible plan, which is our lowest premium for employees. The village currently pays 100% of that premium for active employees, and it's $700. Let's just estimate $700. So in retirement, a retiree who's got 30 years of service, consecutive years of service, and is age 50 would receive a $700 benefit until age 65,
Paid in cash every year.
monthly. And they would have to sign up for that every year.
But this is not post-retiree medical. If I have
Correct.
$20,000 medical expense, I get $700.
Correct.
Or I can obtain my own insurance policy.
Correct. This is not it is not an insurance policy. It is an allowance.
So remind me again, who's considered a retiree?
I'm sorry?
Who is considered a retiree?
So who would be eligible for this is anybody who retires from the village and applies for retirement through the retirement system,
What makes you eligible for retirement?
age and years of service.
Age and years of service.
Right, and they've got a whole big chart that I
Yeah, oh,
practically have
okay, yeah.
memorized.
Right. But this is not a fixed amount. This amount grows with the village's contribution every year towards its medical.
It certainly could, and we've written into the policy that if for some reason in the future the village does not pay 100% of the premium for employees, that would also reduce the amount of premium that's paid to retirees.
How many people would be eligible now, and/or would you anticipate might be eligible in the future?
Right now, it's what, 2, 3, or 4 that would be eligible right now?
That could retire. Say that. Would you say how many?
3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so 3 or 4 now, which will add another 1 or 2 every single year, so
Of course. Yeah.
Sure,
until they start dropping off on the end. And
correct.
so
Ever-growing amount.
it is ever growing until, the ones that get it starting now start passing away.
Or turn
Or
65.
turn 65, yeah. That's a better
Let's
way
have
to
them
put
turn
it.
65.
So we're planning on giving them an allowance versus saying, sure, we're happy to carry on the roles, but you pay it.
Right,
Right.
because then the liability is not on our
The experience, the claims experience will go against us.
Is there any offset if they take other employment that has medical benefits?
Right now, there is no offset.
If every
It's a double
employee,
dip then, right?
It could be, if somebody goes to another job.
Yeah,
The-
I'm good.
Sorry, and that is a concern. How do we monitor that would be a difficult administrative point if we wanted to look into
Yeah,
that.
but it's very common to see that.
but have we forecast an expected cost based on our current eligibility and kind of looking at annual turnover and people aging or acquiring another year of service every year?
Well, we haven't done an actuarial analysis, but Dana did crunch some numbers, I think.
Yeah,
You sent
so
those to us.
if absolutely everyone could go, I mean, I don't think that's an accurate number. So what I was looking at, and I emailed the other day, is we assumed like the 3 or 4 would go, and that was, I think, $3,000 to $4,000. So that would be the first year. That was only half a year though. So say it's 7,000 to 8,000 a year, and it's going to add 2,000 or 3,000 each year because more and more people will be retiring.
I mean, the potential maximum obligation to an employee is 700 times 15.
Yes.
If I qualify at age 50, I've got 15 years till I'm 65.
Which is $124,000, assuming the rate doesn't go up.
I'm sorry?
About $125,000 over the course of 15 years.
Yeah, and assuming the rate doesn't go up, which is an enormous assumption, because I don't think anything
Right.
has gone up more than healthcare
Right.
over
Right.
the past 30 years
Sure,
here.
sure.
I'm gonna just cut to the chase on this. I want to take care of our people, okay? And I think we are taking care of care of our people, especially what we passed here. But to do basically a commitment of something we can't forecast the cost of what it's going to be, especially with healthcare and all that kind of stuff that's gone through with that. I'm just not willing to put that liability on the village with what I'm hearing right now. So Dana can crunch more numbers and show more stuff, but what I'm seeing right now is this is a risk that I don't think we need to be taking personally on there. I want to know the numbers more and have a cap on it and things like that. Again, I want to take care of our people, be competitive, and things like that. If this were a way that they could pay it themselves, and there's some method to work that out where we're not giving an annuity, basically, for someone who's retiring out, that makes more sense to me.
Keeping them on the plan.
Yeah, if there's a way to keep them on the plan where they're paying for it on there, that may, because then it's not a liability for us. I mean, what happens on here that if heaven forbid, healthcare costs go up, okay, and those annuities go up and it's doubled in a year or two.
Right.
Okay, we're making a commitment we can't necessarily cash.
I'm not hearing this as a commitment that is sensitive to other costs. Is that wrong? I heard it's kind of a fixed amount based on qualifying for certain criteria, whether healthcare costs go through the roof.
It's still health
or not.
insurance.
Pardon me?
It's still health insurance.
Yeah,
That's what they're paying
No,
for.
no, that's the point. It's not insurance. It's an allowance.
Yeah, but the
But it's
allowance would
paying
be,
for the insurance. So if the insurance costs go up, the allowance goes up.
As the
I haven't heard that. Is that correct?
As the policy is written right now, the allowance would be whatever the amount is active employees, we're paying for active employees. We hadn't considered capping it, we certainly could.
I very much agree with Dr. Morgan's assessment on this one here. Plus, I don't see the sense of urgency to package this with all the other benefit things going on at this point in time. I would prefer to see this tabled for a while and think this through.
I want to chew on this for a while. Again, I'm not saying we can't work something out.
Sure.
But what I'm hearing right now, this is a liability that I'm not willing to accept for the village, from Jeff Morgan's perspective.
We need a
It's
lot
too
more-
open-ended. It's just,
Need
it's
a lot
too
more
open-ended.
quantification of what the potential cost is, which at the moment we don't have.
And this was a January 1st. This was a January 1st, so this is 6 months in the future, anyway.
In the corporate world, this is maybe 20 years ago, there was a FAS statement adopted where they had to account for post-retiree medical.
Correct.
These companies were taking multi-billion-dollar charges for liabilities that they'd actually promised but never had to account for.
Correct.
I didn't see this the same way, but if it is, then we have to be able to quantify it, and there are ways to quantify it, and then we can look at it and say, is that a liability we're willing to take on? But to take on an open-ended liability, I agree, is not prudent.
And I think it would be an actuarial analysis, but I can certainly get with Dana and we can talk through that process.
yeah, we could also, look back and assume whoever within the last 10 years that retired
Right.
would be paying out if they had
Correct.
were part of this plan.
Who would be eligible for that? Right.
Okay, so we'll return to this at a future date. Is that the consensus? Okay,
That sounds good.
all righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to item 7, other business. Start, Dr. Morgan, any other business you'd like to raise?
Just going to recommend that Matt make sure the headline reads, we're taking care of our people, not we're keeping the retirees from getting health care.
Don't focus on the one negative.
That's all I got, thanks.
Mr. Taylor?
I think not. I think I'm all good.
Barb? No? Jack?
No, nothing.
Nothing, no, okay. Nothing here? Why don't we adjourn for,
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second.
all right, we'll regroup in about 10 minutes. 5 of.
Aye.
Oh, man.
Yep.